Discover how a broken girl unexpectedly transformed a millionaire actor's heart in just 30 days. Emily wiped down the same cafe countertop for the umpteenth time that afternoon. The cafe thrummed with energy, but she felt trapped beneath the weight of swirling dreams layered thick with the dust of disappointment. As she served the kale smoothies and avocado toasts, a memory fluttered, her father's quiet ambition to become a doctor flashing through her mind like an old film reel breaking under pressure. Had he ever known, amidst the relentless grind, she might one day transform the path of a millionaire actor? The thought, absurd and painful, planted itself like a thorn in her heart. Every table she approached felt like a testament to her struggle, each corner reeking of the success she could hardly envision for herself. The city scent of hope mingled with her own insecurities, and as she balanced plates and dodged flirty customers, she found herself lingering on the idea that she was only capable of waiting tables, a far cry from what her life could be. Yet, under the golden light streaming through the cafe windows, moments of solace pieced themselves together in her cramped, photo-laden apartment, remnants of a life filled with kindness before everything went dark. Then he walked in. Jack, the actor, settled into a corner booth, a world of glitz contained in a single frame, flanked by cameras and intrigued passers-by. Emily steadied herself, her hands trembling as she approached. His presence was electric, an unmistakable duality of vulnerability and arrogance. Their interaction hummed with tension. Jack's smirk seemed to mock her struggles, a condescending tilt to his head as he dismissed her with words that felt like sharp knives, slicing deeper than she could have anticipated. "Serving coffee? Isn't that the easy route?" He jested, laughter rippling around him like waves in the ocean. Emily bit back her indignation. It wasn't tea about ease, it was about survival, about seizing the bits of the American dream left for a girl like her. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into weeks, and Emily felt drawn to Jack despite his initial disdain. They shared fleeting conversations that caught her off guard, as he began to shed layers of his star-studded persona. But with every thrill of their connection came the gnawing doubt. She questioned her worth, her purpose in the prism of Jack's world. Could she rise above the shadows of her father's aspirations? The shimmering lights of Hollywood dimmed alongside her self-esteem, a relentless barrage of insecurities lurking at her heels. Tension tightened when Jack's manager took notice, eyes sharp and calculating, sensing the bond forming a threat that could erode their carefully constructed facade. Emily grappled, torn between desperation and the warmth she felt growing within herself. Here was an actor punctuated by success, yet craving authenticity in the vibrant streets where dreams flickered like neon lights. Then came the night beneath the stars, each heartbeat drumming out a desperate plea. Jack's latest call rang with desperation, tangible troubles tightening their grip on their bond. Would pressing forward mean bringing their worlds together? The shadows of judgment hovered, pressing against their fragile peace. As the cameras clicked nearby, doubt clouding the air thickened, leaving Emily to wonder if she was a mere fairy tale woven from fantasy and heartache, while Jack contemplated the cost of connection amidst the chaos of fame. They stood, stricken by uncertainty, their hearts racing beneath the ceiling of a world that threatened to tear them apart. The question loomed like an unwelcome specter: could love survive in a realm of glaring scrutiny? The city pulsed around Emily as she swept leftover crumbs into the trash, her movements automatic while her mind whirred with uncontained thoughts. Each flicker of laughter from the other tables served as a reminder of her solitude, echoing sharpness against her fresh wounds. Despite the undeniable attraction to Jack, a terrifying uncertainty crawled beneath her skin. She examined her reflection in the polished cafe windows, searching for strength among her insecurities. Was she merely a pawn in this glamorous game, or could she be more? That night, after the cafe dimmed and she returned to her cramped apartment, Emily sat surrounded by her photographs, each encapsulating moments of triumph. Those trivial fragments ignited a flicker of courage deep within her. Her father's tales about hard work surfaced vividly in her mind, urging her to confront her fears. They were whispers of dreams and determination, weaving a tapestry of ideals that beckoned her to rise. The next morning, as sunlight bathed her room, Emily made a decision. She couldn't allow Jack's scornful initial impression to fester into self-doubt. She wouldn't let the shadows of their vastly different worlds overshadow her ambitions. A plan began to form, murky but promising. She envisioned using her connection with Jack, not simply as an escape but as a springboard for her own aspirations, an opportunity to reclaim the dreams buried under layers of adversity. When she arrived at the cafe, anxiety ricocheted in her chest. Jack was already seated in his usual booth, flipping through scripts while the murmur of fellow patrons filled the air. Taking a deep breath, she approached him with fresh resolve, resisting the tremor in her hands. "Hey, Jack. Got any exciting roles coming up today?" she asked, infusing her tone with overt cheerfulness. Jack glanced up, momentarily taken aback by her newfound bravado. "Just the usual gusto," he replied, a hint of intrigue coloring his expression. Yet his gaze flickered with judgment, reminding her of past barbs. "Actually, I was thinking," Emily ventured, leaning slightly closer, "would you ever consider working on something more personal? You know, something that dives deeper than the surface?" Jack's brow arched, skepticism lacing his words. "What do you mean?" Heart racing, she pressed on, her mind swirling with images of narratives that echoed her life. "There's a lot of depth in everyday struggles. People relate to authenticity. It could challenge the stereotypes. Maybe even engage your audience on a new level?" Each word felt weighty, yet liberating. "Authenticity," Jack echoed, pondering her words. Emily felt the tension shift, a delicate crack in the armor he wore. "So, what? You want to write a screenplay?" he teased, but there was a flicker in his eyes, a spark ignited by her earnestness. "Maybe," she replied, emboldened by his response. "I have some ideas, stories that matter. Would you be interested in hearing them?" Jack leaned back, his interest piqued further. The initial dismissal began to dissolve, replaced by an thought-provoking exchange. They spent the next hour discussing her thoughts, exploring themes of struggle against ambition wrapped tightly around the celebrity world. As Emily spoke, she showcased parts of her past, the sacrifices, the fears, the hopes. Each word tore down her self-imposed limitations, allowing clarity to surface. The tension between them shifted from skepticism to mutual respect, threaded together by vulnerability. But just as a solid connection sparked, the door opened, reminding them both of the looming weight of scrutiny and judgment from the outside world. Jack's phone buzzed, and the brief moment of intimacy shattered. The weight of his stardom crept back in, eclipsing their fragile bond. Was she poised to break free from the ordinary? Or would the demands of fame entangle them both, suffocating the authenticity she longed for? Moments turned into decisions as Emily felt the swell of possibility shimmering in the air like an untamed urge. The question lingered unsettlingly in her mind: would she be bold enough to capture that spark, or would she shy away, fearing the repercussions of stepping into the spotlight? With uncertainty riding her coattails, she stepped away from their table, knowing their journey was only beginning. Could she maintain her voice amid the noise, or would she lose herself in the quest for connection? The afternoon sun streamed through the cafe windows, illuminating everything with a golden warmth that Emily craved. But as she swept her gaze across the room, most of its warmth faded quickly beneath the frustrating weight of uncertainty. She had caught Jack's attention, that was a start, but the hope now fluttering in her chest begged to be nurtured, to be developed into something tangible. Back in her small apartment that evening, she sat with a notebook spread open, freshly sharpened pencils scattered about like lost ideas waiting for direction. She stared at the blank pages, feeling as if each one whispered challenges and potential. Emily craved an outlet, a means to channel her thoughts, dust off the cobwebs of her past, and transform her vulnerabilities into stories. After all, hadn't she just birthed her first idea in Jack's presence? Yet here she was, immobilized by strident doubt. "Each story matters," she murmured to herself, remembering the flicker of interest in Jack's usual aloof demeanor. Perhaps it was time to breathe life into her silent aspirations. She scribbled down thoughts, trustingly allowing the ink to flow as she poured herself onto the page. Each word gained momentum, gradually pulling strength from the memories she had previously shielded. Days morphed into nights as Emily worked, crafting drafts, sketching characters that mirrored unfulfilled dreams, and weaving threads of resilience together. Little by little, she emerged from the fog, tethering fragile parts of herself into a heartfelt narrative. Yet, a symphony of questions accompanied her growth. Was it enough? Would Jack ever see her as more than a part of his glamorous world? And more importantly, would she have the confidence to confront her insecurities when he inevitably glimpsed deeper into her story? With her heart pounding like a drum, Emily returned to the cafe, clutching her notebook close. Today she would seize the momentum she had built and share her work with Jack. Sitting opposite him felt akin to standing on the precipice of a cliff, ready to leap into the unknown. Surrounding noises faded to a soft hum, all she could focus on was the anticipation hovering between them. "Emily," Jack greeted, quizzical eyes flashing up from his script. "You look different today." "Better different, I hope," she replied with a tentative smile, raising her notebook. "I've been working on something." His intrigue piqued, Jack leaned back, arms crossed. "I'm listening." Taking a deep breath, Emily began to share fragments of the narrative she had crafted, infusing it with tales of resilience, humor, and heart. Bits of her own life seeped in, each story arc carefully reflecting her struggle against self-doubt. As Jack listened, she felt an electricity crackle across the table. His expression shifted from casual interest to something deeper, something akin to respect. "You've brought me into your world," Jack said, his tone softer now. "There's incredible depth here, the kind that makes me want to see what happens next." Her heart soared with every word that flew between them. For the first time, the barriers enclosed around her began to crumble. Jack reached for her notebook, flipping through its pages, eyebrows knitting together in concentration. "You should consider taking this further," he asserted, genuine admiration lacing his voice. "There's a real story here, Emily." But her reflection lingered in the back of her mind, persistent and insistent. Was she truly ready? Each compliment, each nod of approval from him sent her insecurities reeling, whispering doubts that felt all too familiar. Could she remain authentic when he became part of her journey? A realization settled into her bones. This was about more than just Jack or even her ambitious writing. It was about confronting her past and the fragmented pieces of herself. It was about weaving her vulnerability into the fabric of her new beginnings and refusing to be diminished by the glimmering facade surrounding them both. As they continued discussing her narrative flow, Emily realized this was not merely an exchange of ideas. She felt the palpable connection tightening, a partnership built on authenticity and resilience. Yet a sense of foreboding threaded through her thoughts. If she was to truly succeed, she needed to face the harsh realities connected to Jack and his world. What future awaited her in this burgeoning friendship tinged with professional ambition? The shadows beneath Jack's stardom still loomed heavily. Would her writing weave them closer, or would it inadvertently drive them apart as their worlds collided? The time would come when she needed to confront the truth of her aspirations. But for now, she dared to dream, the pressure of decision building like a storm. Would she risk everything for the reality this connection offered, or would she retreat, allowing fear to cage her once more? Her heart raced as the next chapter of her life unfolded before her. Little did she know, the journey was just beginning, and there were pivotal moments yet to come that would challenge everything she had come to believe about herself. The cafe felt different that morning, less like a place of refuge and more like a stage where her vulnerability would be exposed. Emily settled into her usual spot, a bubbling mix of nerves and excitement churning inside her. Jack's gaze was unwavering as he greeted her with a warmth that cut through her anxiety. Today, it was time to share not just her words, but the truth behind them. "Hey, are you ready for more?" Jack asked, leaning in, genuine interest radiating from him. Emboldened by the supportive energy enveloping them, she nodded. "There's depth in honesty," she reminded herself, as she dove deep into the essence of what had emerged from countless sleepless nights. "These stories reflect parts of me," she began tentatively. "Each character struggles like I have. It's raw, and I hope it doesn't repel you." Jack's expression softened. "Raw is good, it's real." His eyes bore into hers with an intensity that ignited 1,000 thoughts. Did he see through her layers of insecurity? She could almost feel the weight of her past peeling away, piece by piece, in that moment of raw connection. As she read aloud, the words began to feel less like mere expressions and more like acts of defiance against the fears that had so relentlessly confined her. They were her declaration of independence, and with each paragraph, she pulled the thread of her own narrative into the fabric of their conversation. Jack chuckled at plots that mirrored her humor, empathized with her character's burdens, and most importantly, between the exchanges of thoughts, he offered glimpses of the person he was beneath the stardom, the fears he faced, the isolation, the expectations. It was refreshing, grounding. But with each revelation about him, doubt prickled at her ego. Would he really appreciate the complexities of someone like her, when his world spun in colors of gold and privilege? Yet, as the sun began its descent outside, painting the cafe in softer hues, Emily sensed a shift. It was as if the barriers eroding around her were mirrored by Jack's own willingness to let her see him. She had entered this cafe balancing on a tightrope suspended between fear and ambition, but here she was now, finding solace in their shared experiences. "Your voice has a unique strength, Emily," he said, his tone now more serious. "It can resonate with people. You should be telling stories, not just keeping them safe between pages. The world deserves to see this side of you." A flicker of acknowledgement waved through her. She had always put herself in the background, not believing in the merit of her voice. But Jack, with his unyielding gaze, seemed to be calling forth the courage she had buried so deep. It was intoxicating yet terrifying. "What if they don't understand? What if I fail?" she confessed, her heart hammering against her ribcage. "Failure is just a part of the journey. You think everything I do is flawless? You should see the effort behind my moments of success," he replied, the hint of a knowing smile casting away her fear momentarily. Her walls began to brush away. Perhaps failure was an experience to embrace rather than evade. Could she view the risk as a necessity for growth? As days turned to weeks, Emily sculpted those fragments into an arc of narratives revealing truths she hadn't dared acknowledge publicly. She expanded her reach, began sending pieces out for feedback, but the weight of uncertainty returned with full force. What if she revealed too much? What if Jack's acknowledgement didn't translate into support when the stakes rose? Yet there was a shift, she felt it deeply. In every exchange with him, questions began morphing from self-doubt to self-affirmation. Strangers began responding to her work, and she even contemplated starting a blog, where her vulnerable words would nestle against a backdrop of solitude. But just as momentum carried her forward, a new dilemma loomed. She needed to confront her relationship with Jack directly. What was this bond they shared? Was it truly partnership, or merely sympathy shared between the confines of passion and creativity? Could she stake her fragile heart on the connection that seemed to bloom under starlit skies, or would the truth of their lives expose the stark contrast that divided them? As Emily stood on the cusp of making decisions that could bind her journey to Jack's fate, she felt the pressure build within her, a mix of trepidation and excitement igniting her spirit. The moment had come to face not just the impending decisions, but also the person she feared she might become, a woman stepping away from the shadows and into a light that might blind her. How far was she willing to go to unveil her true self, and what would she uncover about Jack in the process? The bittersweet breath of uncertainty hung in the air, and Emily realized things were about to change. The next chapter was on the horizon, and she could almost feel the tension of choice vibrating through her veins. Would she have the strength and clarity to transform both their paths? Or would the reality of their different worlds push them apart before they even began? In the quiet aftermath of her revelations, Emily wrestled with the cacophony of emotions that churned within her. The once bright warmth of Jack's encouragement now felt tinged with clouds of doubt. She stared at her phone, contemplating the very blog she had once dreamed of launching. Would sharing her rawest thoughts be liberating, or would it expose her vulnerabilities in a way that unraveled her fragile sense of self? Perched at her desk, filled with notebooks cluttering the surface, she took a deep breath and opened her laptop. She typed out the title of her first post, "The Weight of Words." The flickering cursor mocked her indecision, dancing nervously as she sought the right words to anchor her thoughts. Writing had always been her refuge, a place where images spun into beautiful tapestries of narrative. Yet, now it felt like a precipice, the edge of an abyss filled with the unknown. Every keystroke unveiled more than just her musings on failure and ambition, it confronted the very core of her self-worth. She questioned if opening her heart in such a public manner was worth the risk. What if the critics emerged as cruel as the voices inside her head? The specter of rejection loomed large, but Jack's encouragement acted as a lifeline thrown into her uncertainty. Finishing the initial draft, she read it over and over again, cringing with every sentence. What if this is too much? She murmured, her breath hitching at the thought of exposing herself to the scrutiny of strangers. But wasn't it Jack who said vulnerability was strength? Would that strength cascade beyond her, touching others in ways she could hardly imagine? She remembered their conversations that marked her growth, his laughter and perspective altering the landscape of her thoughts. Without realizing it, he had become a mirror reflecting the potential she had often ignored. Desire surged within her, a yearning not just to share her stories but to recognize the stories that swirled around Jack as well. Maybe their connection was not just sympathy, maybe it spoke to mutual pathways of transformation. Deep down, however, one question persisted like a stubborn itch: could she really navigate the world of emotional intimacy when so many walls confined her heart? Emily made a decision: clarity amidst chaos. After hours of soul-searching, she realized her need to voice her concerns directly to Jack. It was time to bridge the gap between them, to reveal her true feelings and confront the complexity of their bond. Her heart raced as she arranged to meet him at their beloved cafe once more. She could already envision the scenario playing out, the scent of freshly brewed coffee that had become their backdrop, the comforting chatter of patrons serving as a shield against the storm brewing within her. As she walked through the cafe door, her senses heightened. Jack was waiting at their usual table, a hint of a smile gracing his lips, his presence an anchor in her swirling thoughts. She settled into her seat, the warmth of their connection both invigorating and terrifying. "Hey, everything okay?" His concern, she noticed, was not devoid of curiosity. It was almost protective. "This feels important," she said, her voice steady despite the anxious flutter in her stomach. "I've been reflecting on what we shared, on my writing, and us." His gaze intensified, prompting her to spill forth the torrent of thoughts that had accumulated like a dam on the verge of bursting. "I wonder if what we have is real or if I'm simply an exercise for you. I need to know where this connection leads." Jack leaned closely, an air of seriousness wrapping around them. "For me, it feels real, Emily. But we both need to be honest, beyond the words we write." The confession struck deep. This wasn't just about artistic expression anymore, it was about the entangled paths of two lives, filled with dreams and fears. As the conversation progressed, doubts swirled like autumn leaves caught in a tempest, but Emily felt a newfound strength. No longer would she shy away from the uncomfortable. She had already begun facing her fears. Now it was time to face Jack. Had she finally uncovered the truth behind their bond, or was she about to leap into a chasm where answers might shatter her hopes? With her heart pounding and the cafe fading into the background, Emily realized she was on the edge of a profound transformation, eager to discover if honesty would lift the curtain on their relationship or serve as a final act of separation. As the weight of her truth hung between them, Emily resolved that whatever lay ahead would shape her, both in her expression and her connection to Jack. The moment felt monumental, but just as tentative hope began to take root, the door swung open and an unexpected figure stepped inside. Looking for answers of his own, he had the potential to knock their world off balance again. A chill brushed against Emily as the door swung open. Her gaze snapped to the entrance, where a familiar silhouette emerged from the muted light. It was Ryan, the enigmatic figure from her past, his youthful exuberance now replaced by an intensity that made her pulse quicken. Confusion tangled with the vulnerability she had just begun to confront with Jack. Ryan had been her muse but also a source of unresolved emotion she thought she had buried fluidly. Ryan made his way through the cafe, his presence disrupting the delicate balance she had just begun to build with Jack. Heart racing, Emily felt a mixture of dread and anticipation. This wasn't how she envisioned the conversation unfolding. The moment felt precarious, as if the ground beneath her might give way at any moment. "Hey, do you mind if I join you?" Ryan asked, his tone casual, although Emily sensed the underlying significance in his words. "Actually, we were having a private moment," Jack interjected, his voice carrying an edge Emily had not heard before. She marveled at how his protective instinct flared in the face of Ryan's unexpected arrival. It felt like the clouds darkening overhead, a portent of the turmoil to come. "Oh, come on. It's just a quick catch-up," Ryan said, a charming smile plastered on his face, but Emily noticed a flicker of something more, perhaps desperation. As much as his appearance puzzled her, it prompted a troubling reminder of her own shortcomings. Hadn't she just begun to seek clarity and honesty? Now, they risked being overshadowed by old ghosts. Jack glanced at Emily, his brow furrowed in concern. What do you want, Ryan? The tension was palpable. Emily swallowed hard, feeling unmoored. She had built this moment carefully, each word weighted with the promise of honesty. Yet here they were, at the mercy of an uninvited chapter from her past. I need to discuss something crucial, Ryan continued, his voice lowering as if inviting the intensity to soak into the very fabric of the cafe. Emily felt her heart race even faster, torn between the urgency of the conversation she wished to have with Jack and the unexpected gravity of Ryan's presence. About what? She pressed, unable to fully mask the edge in her voice. Her emotions flared, nudged by a latent fear that resurfaced and threatened to suffocate her resolve. Ryan took a deep breath, as if searching for the right words. We need to talk about the unfinished business between us. I was hoping we could confront that before it becomes too late. Late? The word reverberated in her mind at timing she had never expected to navigate. A flood of memories rushed forth, the laughter, the shared dreams, and the bitter undertones of a relationship that had never truly resolved itself. She glanced at Jack, whose frown deepened, further entrenching her turmoil. Emily, this is our moment, Jack said, his voice firm yet gentle, anchoring her amidst turmoil. It was exactly what she needed to hear. Their unfinished conversation felt oddly dwarfed now, overwhelmed by the force of this interruption, but could she allow herself to be vulnerable again? Was Ryan a diversion or an unexpected catalyst for her growth? The intersection of two worlds pulled her in two conflicting directions. Ryan, we can't go back to that, she said, her voice steadier now, empowered by the strength of her feelings for Jack. I've changed. We both changed. Have you really? He challenged, an eyebrow raised. Because it looks like someone barely scratched the surface. Her heart hammered in her chest as his words cut deeper than any kind of affection ever could. Ryan's provocations clawed at her self-doubt, and she was suddenly thrust into the need to assert her newfound identity, an identity she was still piecing together. The air crackled with tension as Jack's protective stance heightened, and Emily felt the weight of two lives clashing within the confines of that small cafe booth. Could she fight for her voice, or would Ryan's unfinished business derail everything she had begun to build with Jack? As the clock ticked down, ominously, she knew she stood at a critical juncture. Emily had to decide, would she engage with her past or cling to her growing future? The answer hung in the air, thick with uncertainty, as she readied herself for the confrontation that might illuminate or further entangle her life's trajectory. With Ryan's eyes keenly fixed on her, she felt the imminent challenge unraveling before her, the echoes of past loves clashing against the hope that sparked within her current connection. How would she respond when confronted with not only her past but the very essence of who she aspired to become? Emily's chest tightened as she met Ryan's gaze, bracing for the tempest of emotions that surged within. Memories spilled forth, carrying an intricate tapestry of joy and heartbreak, but she stood her ground, a newfound determination sparking within her. The chaos that threatened to engulf her was different now. She was not the same vulnerable girl from before. She was evolving. Listen, Ryan, she began, her voice measured despite the turmoil coursing through her. You and I have a history that's complicated, and I understand that you want to talk about it. But I can't let that history dictate my present or my future. Jack leaned in slightly, an unspoken urgency radiating from him. Emily could feel the warmth of his support envelop her like a protective shield. It fueled her resolve. She wanted to navigate this difficult conversation, to unveil the fragments of herself that were still hidden beneath layers of fear and uncertainty. Ryan's expression shifted from charm to something more unsettling. Was it regret? Or perhaps a plea for understanding? I didn't come here to disrupt your life, Emily. I came because I need closure, too. Closure? Emily echoed, her heart lurching. What kind of closure do you think we can find facing each other after all this time? We left things unresolved, sure, but I've worked hard to avoid revisiting that chapter. Maybe that chapter hasn't finished writing itself, Ryan countered, with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. What if there is still a story there? One that we both need to explore? Her breath caught. And what about the story I'm living now? Jack's presence grounded her further, amplifying the conflict within. Emily felt torn. Engaging with Ryan had the potential to uproot the fragile balance she had begun to build with Jack. She wasn't just wrestling with her past, she was also fiercely defending her newfound self. "Emily," Jack's voice broke through, firm yet gentle. "I can only imagine how difficult this is for you. Just remember, what you're building with me is real. You have every right to protect it." "Yes, I know this is hard for you too, Jack," she said, feeling the weight of her decision pressing down on her. "But I also can't ignore that Ryan is part of my history. I need to confront this, but I need you with me. Can we face this together?" The air hummed with tension, a mix of uncertainty and the urgency to delve deeper into her own unresolved feelings. She understood that this moment, however chaotic, was a step toward embracing her full self, both the flawed girl who had loved Ryan and the stronger woman she was becoming with Jack. She glanced back at Ryan, meeting his gaze directly. "What do you really want from me? Closure? Understanding? Or are you hoping for something more? Honestly? I want to know if what we had meant anything at all," he replied, the vulnerability spilling from his eyes. It was surprising and disarming, but it also sparked a flicker of anger within her. Did he think she would simply hand over her heart again? "Doing this isn't just about you or me, Ryan," she shot back, her voice rising defensively. "It's about everyone who is in my life now, especially Jack. I have new commitments, new dreams, and I won't allow my past to undermine them." "Emily, Ryan started, but she cut him off. "No," she interjected, feeling the rising heat of her resolve. "The time for us is over. I deserve to focus on the opportunities in front of me, the professional growth I've fought for, and the relationship that has begun to flourish with Jack. I need to let my future guide me." The pause that followed was electrified with meaning. She was declaring independence, asserting control over her narrative. Ryan's frustration morphed into resignation, and she sensed a shift in the air, the momental acknowledgement of her choices. "I see it now," he muttered quietly. "I've been clinging to something long gone. You're right. It's time for me to move on as well, isn't it?" Suddenly, she felt an unusual mix of relief and melancholy. The weight of expectations was heavy, yet it felt like she had, for the first time, chosen her own path unfettered by the shadows of her past. As Ryan stood to leave, Emily turned towards Jack, their unspoken bond solidified by her declaration. He looked at her with thoughtfulness that stirred warmth inside her, the flicker of hope igniting anew. Yet, just as she began to unwind from the tension, a persistent pit of uncertainty tugged at her. She was confronting Ryan today, but what ghosts would she face tomorrow? Emily's heart began to race once more, not from fear but from an insatiable curiosity about all that lay ahead. The echoes of her past had faded, but would a new challenge soon arise, threatening everything she had begun to cultivate? If so, she was ready to fight for every bit of her future. She would refuse to be swayed again, but first, there was still so much to uncover about herself, her desires, and the strength she must wield as she continued to embrace the unpredictability of life in all its complexity. What other truths awaited, ready to unfold? Emily stood on the precipice of a new chapter, the neon lights of the city flickering against the twilight sky, mirroring the swirling emotions within her. The weight of her confrontation with Ryan had not only lifted a burden, but it had also ignited a desire for deeper introspection. She returned to her apartment, still adorned with reminders of a life she had fought to overcome. Once overwhelmed by memories, these walls now felt like a canvas for her transformation. Flopping onto her couch, she wrestled with conflicting thoughts. Jack's support had anchored her through the emotional storm, yet a chilling question remained: would her past continue to challenge her newfound strength? She decided to reshape her narrative, but how could she ensure that the threads of old relationships wouldn't unravel the fabric of her present? She took a deep breath and opened her laptop, ready to dive into work. As a freelance graphic designer, she found solace in her projects, but today felt different. She hesitated, staring at the screen, searching for the spark that had once guided her creativity. Ideas swirled, but like a gallery of unfinished canvases, they lingered just out of reach. Disappointment draped itself around her like a heavy blanket, but then, like a spark igniting from within, a realization dawned. She had wasted too much time suffocated by uncertainty. What if her vulnerability was not a weakness but a catalyst for her creativity? She became acutely aware of feelings she had suppressed for too long: the joy she derived from creating, the thrill of a new project, and the need to merge her artistic voice with her evolving self. Determined, she opened a new document, letting the words flow freely. I am not defined by my past. She typed furiously. Each keystroke became a powerful affirmation, a step toward the professional growth she sought. With a goal set, the wonder of her creative potential transformed her state of mind. It was time to reignite her passion and channel it into her work. As inspiration surged, she wondered what direction her designs would take. Would she embrace bold colors, influenced by the rush of emotions stemming from her recent decisions? The thought exhilarated her. Later that evening, she stood before her mirror, examining her reflection. She was more than a survivor of her past, she was an architect of her future. Confidence built up within her as she prepared for a meeting with a local arts nonprofit seeking a fresh look for their upcoming campaign, a project that could elevate her career to higher stakes. Anxiety fluttered in her stomach as she rehearsed ideas for the strategy session. She had prepared meticulously, yet there was still a flicker of self-doubt whispering that perhaps she should play it safe. No, she shouted to her own reflection. This is your moment to shine, Emily. Show them what you're capable of. The next day, face to face with the nonprofit's board members, her determination guided her words. She pitched ideas that were bold and unconventional, drawing inspiration from her own journey. The room was still at first, eyes flitting between uncertainty and intrigue as she unfolded her vision. With every word, she witnessed a shift. Curiosity replaced hesitation, enthusiasm ignited a spark, a connection formed. As the meeting concluded, the board chair leaned in, impressed. You've shown us a perspective we didn't know we needed. Let us talk about collaboration. Elation coursed through her. This was the opportunity she'd yearned for, a testament to her growth. Yet, alongside the excitement lingered the realization that she still needed to navigate the tangled web of her relationships. Jack had become her anchor, but how would he respond to the changes she was embracing? Would he appreciate her evolution or feel overshadowed by it? Her thoughts reverted to Jack as she walked back home. She felt his presence warm and steady, but also susceptible to the tremors of change. She needed to have an open conversation with him about her new goals, about merging their journeys rather than simply coasting on the momentum of their relationship. Emily took a deep breath as she entered her apartment, reinvigorated and ready to engage with the challenges ahead. Yet a gnawing apprehension tainted her excitement. Change required vulnerability, and she was prepared to expose herself even further for the sake of her dreams. Would her relationship with Jack weather the impending storm of her ambitions? As she prepared for their evening together, she questioned if they shared the capacity for growth, not only as individuals but as partners. The answer loomed just beyond her grasp, but she was ready to confront it head-on. Was she ready to redefine her relationship alongside her newfound ambitions? And could she truly embrace the dual path of personal and professional growth without sacrificing one for the other? The answer awaited her just around the corner. Emily stood in the cramped confines of her apartment, heart racing as she prepared for Jack's arrival. Her newfound confidence flickered uncertainly in the face of the vulnerability she needed to show him. How had it come to this? A simple conversation about her ambitions sparked both excitement and an underlying fear of rejection, not of her ideas, but of herself. As she paced the living room, her thoughts spiraled. Would he understand the weight of her desire to grow, how it intertwined with the essence of who she was? Images of their quieter times together surfaced, moments of laughter, shared dreams, a comfortable familiarity that now felt like it danced on a tightrope. Was she balancing on the edge of potential illumination or impending darkness? When the door finally clicked open, Jack entered with that familiar glow that washed over her like warm sunlight. But instead of lingering on the warmth, she noticed a slight hesitance in his usual bright demeanor. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Hey, how was your day? Good. She caught herself too eager, watching carefully as he settled on the couch, a faint frown tugging at his mouth. I had the meeting, she continued, trying to inject vibrancy into her voice. They loved the ideas. That's amazing, Em. His enthusiasm was undeniable, but she sensed a shadow lurking beneath. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his expression focused but guarded. The energy between them shifted. I wanted to talk about something, she stammered, heart thundering. About us. About where I'm headed. Jack's brow furrowed. Okay. He seemed to brace himself, as if anticipating something deep. I feel different, she began, eyes locked onto his. I'm passionate about this project with the nonprofit, and it's more than just a work opportunity. Want to harness this energy, to really create something that resonates with who I am evolving into. Her words hung thick in the air, each syllable weighted with her desire for understanding. Jack remained silent, processing her newfound determination. Are you worried I'll change? Emily ventured, the fear of losing the wonderful man in front of her settling in like lead. I don't want to leave you behind. For a moment, Jack's face betrayed a mixture of emotions: confusion, affection, a hint of hurt. No, I don't want you to hold back. But I guess I just wonder how this will affect us. His eyes searched hers, seeking reassurance, or perhaps clarity. It feels like you're stepping into a new world. And I'm proud of you, but she could see the crumbling facade of their once steadfast relationship. The safety net that had caught them both was fraying, torn between her ambitions and his expectations. This doesn't have to be a competition, Jack. I want you in this, alongside me. But I need to forge my path as well. Isn't that what we always talked about? Supporting each other's dreams? There's a difference between supporting each other and just— he hesitated, forming his words carefully. It feels like you're forging ahead while I'm standing still. Emily's stomach twisted. She had never intended for her growth to intimidate him, to make him feel inadequate next to her rising ambitions. You aren't standing still, she urged. You have your own projects, your own dreams. We can be each other's supporters, even if it means growing in different directions. A tense silence filled the room. Jack's gaze dropped to the floor, and Emily wrestled with the weight of his quiet response. Would he find a way to embrace change too, or would he remain tethered to the past, fearful of what awaited? In the depths of her yearning for change, she felt the stirring of doubt returning, a reminder that neither of them had to choose between love and ambition. Maybe I need to re-evaluate where I'm at as well, Jack finally said, voice quiet but steady. I don't want to be the one who holds you back. Relief washed over her, but an uneasy tension lingered in the air. They were both stepping into the unknown, bound by love yet terrified of the changes rippling beneath the surface. Emily leaned closer, a fragile determination blossomed in her chest. We'll figure this out together, she assured him quietly. I believe in us if we can just be honest with each other. With uncertainties still lurking in the shadows of their conversation, questions flooded her mind. Could love and ambition coexist without tearing them apart? A feeling of impending revelation cloaked the moment, highlighting the struggle that lay ahead. What if their conversations uncovered deeper truths, ones that could redefine their journey together? The thought lingered like a whisper, urging her to dig deeper into both their aspirations and fears, to confront whatever shadows loomed. Emily sat at the cafe, sunlight filtering through the vines overhead, casting warm patterns against the table where she and Jack often exchanged ideas and dreams. The past weeks had thrust her into a whirlwind of introspection, self-empowerment, and undeniable ambition. Today, however, she was ready to manifest everything she had learned. After her confrontation with Ryan, she had faced her past head-on, dispelling the specters of doubt clouding her aspirations. From that moment onward, every conversation with Jack began to illuminate the path ahead, a fusion of their futures rather than merely a convergence of their lives. There was strength in vulnerability, and she recognized that vulnerability was not a weakness to be hidden but a foundation from which they could build together. With a notebook full of new ideas clutched in her hand, she felt the validation coursing through her veins. She had crafted an innovative campaign for the nonprofit, intertwining her life experiences with vibrant narratives. Finally, she was ready to present her vision, a chance to unleash creativity while honoring her personal growth. When Jack arrived, she could feel a subtle shift in the atmosphere. He had the same easy smile, but today, it came with a hint of curiosity mixed with concern. Their eyes locked for a brief moment, and Emily smiled, recognizing the importance of this meeting. I've put together everything we've talked about, she opened, excitement coloring her voice. He nodded, leaning in with palpable interest. I'm eager to hear it. You've been talking about this for weeks. As she unfurled her ideas, weaving in stories filtered through her experiences, she observed Jack's expression shift from casual interest to engaged enthusiasm. The respect she sought began to take form right before her eyes as he eagerly referenced segments of her narrative back to her, each moment lifting her confidence higher. Then, breakthrough realization struck. This was more than just a project, this was a testament to her transformation. She focused on the resonance her stories could have, how they could disrupt narratives entrenched in stagnant routines and false perceptions of life. Jack's support blossomed around her, igniting electric energy, their synergies melding into a collaborative force. "Emily, this is brilliant," he said, admiration evident. "You've captured something authentic, something relatable. This is a campaign that could shift perceptions." With his words, the final pieces of doubt began to dissolve. Emily's heart surged, a liberating wave sweeping over her. She had not only proven her ideas, she had accomplished resonating development of her character in the face of adversity. This wasn't merely about conquering her fears, it was about embracing her identity in conjunction with another. Yet she wasn't finished, she needed to extend the conversation beyond work. Gathering her courage, she explained, "Jack, I've realized something essential through this journey. I need you to understand that my ambitions don't eclipse our relationship. They enhance it. I value your presence, what we have together is vital." Jack's glance softened, his gaze reflecting understanding. He leaned closer, the barrier of his doubts beginning to crumble in the warmth of trust they built together. "I felt insecurities creeping in when you started focusing on your career," he admitted, the transparency empowering both of them. "But seeing you own your voice like this, it inspires me to re-evaluate my own. I see now, we can grow together, and it doesn't have to be a competition." Victory surged within her. At that moment, the fear of losing each other melted away, replaced with a mutual respect for their personal journeys. They were indeed on parallel paths, both seeking authenticity and success, both embracing the shadow and light of their ambitions. "Let us promise each other," Emily proposed gently, "that we will always communicate our growth. I want you with me at every step, even as we take different paths." Jack nodded. "Absolutely. Together, we can navigate anything." With clarity illuminating the space between them, their bond fortified by honesty, Emily smiled, the threads of their connection weaving around new possibilities. What once appeared as a precarious balancing act now felt like the solid ground beneath her feet. She had transformed not just in her writing but within herself, ready to write a future filled with aspirations and shared ambitions. Not only had Emily conquered her inner battles, but she had also redefined what partnership meant in the realm of ambition and love. She left the cafe that day, her heart buoyant, feeling a wave of satisfaction from her newfound voice, empowered, confident, and resolute in forging every chapter ahead. And now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm's fire and share the journey of transformation with every aspiring heart. Comment your reactions and theories about Emily and Jack's incredible evolution. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this empowering ending. Don't wait even one more second to show your support.